What's the most mysterious and blood-chilling place on Earth? The refrigerator at the blood bank. Well, its job is to chill blood. Anyway, the first thing that comes to many minds is the infamous Bermuda Triangle. This area earned its terrifying reputation by swallowing countless ships and airplanes, leaving no trace behind. But recently, the Bermuda Triangle has added another mystery to its record. Cuban Coast Guard came across a ship that had gone missing more than 90 years ago. Ooh, truth or fiction? It was November 29, 1925, when the SS Cotopaxi left Charleston, South Carolina and headed for Havana, Cuba, carrying a big load of coal and 32 crew members. The story has it that several days later, the steamer ran into a violent storm, got water in its hold, and started to tilt dramatically. On December 1st, the ship sent out a distress call, and since then, nothing was ever heard from the crew again. The ship seemed to have vanished into thin air until 2018. On May 18th, the Cuban Coast Guard announced that they had come across a ship that wasn't answering their calls. Since it happened close to a military zone with limited access, it caused a bit of turmoil. The mysterious ship was nearing the island west of Havana and seemed to ignore all attempts by the Coast Guard to communicate. That's why 3 other vessels surrounded and blocked the intruder. Even at first sight, the ship looked bizarre. Rusty and run down, it seemed to drift mindlessly, without any destination in mind. And when the crew climbed on board the ship, which indeed seemed to have been abandoned for decades, they found nothing but more oddities. First, there was not a living soul on board. It baffled the guards to no end. A ship sailing across the ocean, unmanned and uncontrolled. But that wasn't the only abnormality they found. However unbelievable it may sound, on closer inspection, the Coast Guard realized that the discovered ship was SS Cotopaxi, lost in the waters of the North Atlantic Ocean almost 90 years before. Related to the Clinchfield Navigation Company, which was the very company SS Cotopaxi belonged to. After Cuban experts confirmed the authenticity of the logbook, researchers got super excited. And no wonder, now they could finally find out what happened to the ship in 1925. Unfortunately soon, they realized that the logbook wasn't living up to their expectations. It contained tons of interesting information about the everyday life of the ship's crew, but nothing at all about what caused the disappearance of the massive ship. On December 1, 1925, the entries in the book simply came to an abrupt stop. It was the very day when the ship sent out a distress call and then stopped replying to any radio signals. Finding brought more questions than answers. If SS Cotopaxi sank almost 9 decades ago, how did it reappear on the surface? What happened to the crew, and how did they vanish without a trace? And finally, does the finding mean that the Bermuda Triangle has started to return the prey it's been collecting for centuries? That it might have never happened. Soon after this breaking news appeared in different mass media sources, many people started to question the truthfulness of the story. Not only did it seem too unbelievable to be real, but there was also no convincing evidence that the ship had been found in the first place. There were indeed numerous photos of a rusty steamer on the internet, but was it SS Cotopaxi? Unlikely. That's why there's probably no use in combing through the Atlantic Ocean in search of other long-lost vessels and planes just yet. In other words, it really was fake news. So many mysterious disappearances in that area that the chances are high that you'll find 1 or 2 ships that fell victim to the infamous triangle. Maybe it'll be the Patriot, a passenger schooner that left Charleston, South Carolina on December 30, 1812, and headed for New York City. The ship, which had Theodosia Burr Aston on board, the daughter of former American Vice President Aaron Burr, went missing soon after departure, and no one ever heard from the schooner again. Or you may come across SS El Faro, a much more recent disappearance. This cargo ship left Jacksonville, Florida on October 1, 2015, with 33 crew members and countless vehicles, trailers, and containers on board. The 790-foot vessel was supposed to deliver its load to Puerto Rico, but something went terribly wrong. A violent tropical storm that started miles away suddenly transformed into a powerful hurricane that rushed toward El Faro. It started to circle around the cargo ship, making communication from the vessel go silent. But the most shocking thing was that after causing all this turmoil, the hurricane miraculously retreated in the same direction it came from. Weeks later, after a thorough and extensive search, rescuers finally located the ship. It was still in one piece and sitting upright on the bottom at a depth of 15,000 feet. But the blood-chilling truth was that there was no trace of any of the crew members on board. The Bermuda Triangle had already gained popularity in the 15th century when Christopher Columbus documented weird compass readings and bizarre lights in the area. Its nickname, Hurricane Alley, speaks for itself. The weird thing about the Bermuda Triangle is not that too many ships and planes disappear there. After all, it's the menacing and unpredictable Atlantic Ocean. But that, in most cases, even if the wreckage is found, there are no people on board, living or not. One of the most infamous Bermuda Triangle disappearances of all times was USS Cyclops, a huge carrier ship that used to supply fuel to the American fleet. On January 8, 1918, heavy and full of manganese ores, the ship departed from Rio de Janeiro and headed for Baltimore. Being only a few years old, the ship shouldn't have experienced any problems, and all 309 people on board felt safe and calm. But this feeling turned out to be deceptive, because somewhere around March 4, 1918, the ship disappeared into thin air without sending out a distress call or indicating it was having problems in any other way. In the history of the U.S. Navy, it remains the accident which caused the largest loss of life at sea. As for airplanes, probably the most inexplicable disappearance happened on December 5, 1945, and got the name the Lost Patrol. Flight 19 was the code name for 5 bomber planes that flew from the naval base in Florida on a training flight. No one knows for sure what happened to the planes, but they never returned to the base. Most experts believe that the commander of this group, Charles Taylor, got lost and led the planes in the wrong direction. Those machines could land on water, so hypothetically, after getting low on fuel, the pilots could ditch and wait for help, rocking on the surface of the ocean. But that didn't happen. Although 2 rescue Martin Mariner planes were searching the area all through the night and the next day, they found no trace of the 5 disappeared planes. But the most spine-chilling coincidence was that one of the rescue planes failed to return to the base as well. All 6 planes vanished into thin air as if they had never existed. There have been several other plane disappearances when the aircraft went off the radars and never returned. In some cases, pilots had time to send out a Mayday distress call. In others, they disappeared at the blink of an eye when everything seemed to be going perfectly fine. Well, no doubt, it all looks very suspicious, and the notoriety of the Bermuda Triangle might be well earned. But think of this. The area of the Bermuda Triangle varies from 500,000 to 1.5 million square miles, depending on the person describing the anomalous zone. Besides, it's one of the most heavily traveled routes in the world, with thousands of vessels crossing it to get to the ports of Europe, America, and the Caribbean. On the other hand, only several dozen ships and planes have been lost in the Bermuda Triangle over the last centuries. I mean, if you think about it, it's not that much more than any other dangerous area of the ocean, right? Well… Hey, now it's your turn. Do you know any other exciting stories about the Bermuda Triangle? Let me know down in the comments. If you learned something new today, then give this video a like and share it with a friend. But hey, don't go missing just yet. We have over 2,000 cool videos for you to check out. All you have to do is pick the left or right video, click on it, and enjoy. Stay on the bright side of life.